What that means is I'm the early childhood guy at JCC Association. And because I'm used to speaking for 2 hours at a time, I wrote every word down so it wouldn't be longer than 5 minutes. So I would like to imagine that I am speaking first since I believe that JCCs have a built-in advantage in working with interfaith families. Our doors appear to be more or less open and less threatening than other Jewish organizations in some communities. We use 7 Jewish lenses as the foundation of our work. One of our lenses, the lens of Masa, of journey, is particularly significant this afternoon. Our lens of Masa helps us to understand that the Jewish path, both communal and individual, comes with baggage that carries us as much as we carry it. For many interfaith families, a JCC seems a safe and less scary place in which to dip one's toe. I would like to invite, or actually implore, each one of us in the room and beyond to begin to think more seriously about how each of our early childhood Jewish education centers partner together to serve families as a community and not as individual competing organizations. I know this is easier said than done, and we all have work to do in this arena, but the consequences of this behavior would have far-reaching positive results. I have been involved in communities like Denver and Boston that are working vigorously to make this happen. These models and others are of great significance to our future. One of the things to keep in mind is that our interfaith families are no less diverse than our Jewish-born or Jewish-chosen families, and that differentiation, just as we practice with our children, is key. We cannot assume that all interfaith families have similar needs and wants. At the heart of our work in JCC Early Childhood Centers is developing relationships. The research is clear. Almost all families who respond to surveys in diverse geographical locations across the United States and Canada are looking to make friends. These days, people are not living next door to family, and their need for support is keen. We learn from the research that families who have chosen an early childhood Jewish education center were more likely to indicate they felt part of a local Jewish community. This is perhaps more critical with interfaith families. We spend a lot of our time building and developing these relationships so that our centers' cultures are emotionally responsive, enhancing children's and families' emotional well-being. When relationships of trust and security are evident, families can thrive. This needs to be at the core of our work in the Early Childhood Center and must be understood not only by the directors, but the classroom educators of our schools as our foundational work. On that note, our schools spend too much time asking families to come to events that insult their intelligence, as they hunger for meaning in their lives. Latke parties, arts and crafts activities with their children, and merely coming into school on Shabbat and birthdays are not enough. Our families are, in large part, professionals who are inquisitive and are searching. Our interfaith families need to be exposed to the idea at this very critical stage that Judaism, its values, its teachings, offer families a way to live their lives more fully and with great richness each and every day. We cannot present Jewish life as a string of holiday celebrations and recipes. The excuse that our families are too busy is bogus. They will come when we offer them meaningful experiences to them as adult learners. Our task is to be tireless about figuring out what that looks like in each of our communities. Another area that is often neglected is building relationships with grandparents and other significant people in the lives of children. Parents indeed are the most important people in their children's early lives. Children learn about the world and their place in it through their conversations, play activities, and routines with parents and families. These days, when grandparents play diverse roles in families, the welcoming of a grandparent from an interfaith household, whether Jewish or not, is critical. It is an opportunity for learning, for sharing, and for inclusion that cannot be ignored. The mission of Interfaith Family is to empower people in interfaith relationships. We can only begin this work if we build strong and meaningful relationships, work together as an entire undivided community, not individual organizations, and bring the magic of Judaism as an enriching force in our everyday lives to parents, to grandparents, and to their children.
Mark, thank you. It was a great way to start off this conversation. I'm going to turn now to Meredith Lewis, who's the Director of Content and Engagement at PJ Library. And Meredith, I'm just going to ask you to take a minute or two to explain what you're doing and then talk about how PJ is offering pathways to entry for your target audience.
So for those of you who don't know, PJ Library is a program that offers Jewish books and music and activities for families to do and programs for families who are raising children ages 6 months through 11 years old. And it's a program that is open and accessible and totally free to anyone that anybody in this room is working with, really regardless of what their connection is to Jewish life, whether they themselves are Jewish or are raising children with a connection to Jewish life. And I would say that one of the ways that PJ Library is acting as an entry point, I think, is providing families with something they actually need, books, right? As a parent of a young child, you need books, and you need a lot of them coming in to have diversity. It's our children and the parents really appreciate them, and I think at the same point we're finding that the topics, the Jewish values, are helping parents do their core job of parenting. So a book about teaching children to feed the hungry or visit the sick in a Jewish content is also teaching your child not to be a selfish brat. And that is an end goal of the parents, regardless of what their faith background is. And so the fact that we're providing something helpful, that we're bringing it directly into your home when you sign up for PJ Library, you don't have to define your Judaism in someone else's terms. You just have to tell us your address and the names of your kids and the age so we can, which sounds like a lot of information, but it allows us to give you the right age books. There's no prerequisites. You don't have to define on other people's terms. We're also seeing that Mark talked about families and parents having a level of intelligence. We find children's books to actually be an incredibly accessible point for the parents and children to learn together. And I'm not saying that we should speak to our parents as 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, but when parent and child can learn together through a book that has a great story, characters, plot, conflict, they're growing together. And children's books are, generally speaking, they're not judgmental, they're not scary. And one of the things that I think we have been working on is to make sure that I would say that we have more books that are mirrors. In children's literature, we talk a lot about window books. I can visit a place in a different point of time in history, in a different country, see people different than me, look through a window. And when light hits a window correctly, it turns into a mirror. And that means that we need books that a family can look and say, that looks like my family. That family is doing something that I already do. And if that family is Jewish, so am I. And we're working very hard with the industry and with authors to make sure that we have more books, as well through our programs of mirror experiences, that people can see themselves reflected in that community.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'm going to actually, do we have access to microphones right now? Because I want to ask one of our respondents to jump in. I'd like to introduce Ruth Nemzoff, who has been someone who's been extremely active in pointing out the fact that when we talk about family, we're not just talking about parents, and we're not just talking about millennials, we're talking about the whole family. And I want to invite Ruth to comment on what we just heard from Mark, and because I think it's important for you to bring this element in right now. Please go ahead.
All right. Well, when I came to this conference, I didn't realize that I'd be representing every Jewish grandmother in the world, every Jewish grandfather, but I'm also representing every non-millennial, the aunts, the uncles, the sisters, the brothers. So what I want to say is that we are the boots on the ground. We are everything you need. We are not just the boots on the ground. We are people who have high touch. We are people who want to create safe spaces. And we need help in doing this. We need the vocabulary. We don't talk like millennials. We need better vocabulary. We need help. And I also want you to know that we need to be invited And if you ignore us, you lose us at your peril, because we are providing the money. We are supporting PJ Library, sending it to our kids. We enjoy supporting the synagogues. We're supporting Jewish camping, et cetera, and so forth. And if you ignore the chance to bring us in at life cycle events, that's a problem. And I've got a big life cycle event coming up, hopefully not soon, but it's my death. And that is a learning experience. And that's one that we need our rabbis to be able to welcome my interfaith children. That's someplace that I need help in talking to my children before I die. So that's a way that I can bring Judaism to my family even after I die. And it's an opportunity for all of us. And I hope you will invite the grandparent, support the grandparent, support the whole family, support the aunts and uncles, because they are often the ones teaching Jewish practice. It may be the siblings, anyone in the family. So that's my spiel.
Thank you very much. Meredith, can you talk for just a second about what PJ has learned about the role of grandparents and the work that you do?
Yeah, so we just asked our parents to sign up their parents, so grandparents. So we have 25,000 people receiving the books, and we are seeing twofolds. One, when those children are traveling, that reading a story with grandparents, perhaps even more so than parent bedtime, feels like a memory that children hold onto. We've also found the power of Skype and technology. While you may not be a millennial, grandparents are embracing technology. Children don't live as closely to their parents, and that PJ Library is about passing stories down. We are a people that have survived, I would argue, by passing down our stories, and we need to tap into the generations in our community, which for us is both grandparents and great-grandparents today, actually, to spread those stories and inspire that. So we are seeing, like everyone else, I think multi-generation as appropriate, and now we're sending books to grandparents.
It's terrific. Thank you, Meredith. I want to turn now to Rabbi Julie Zupan, who is the director of the URJ Reformed Jewish Outreach in Boston. Can you tell us about your work for just a minute, and then about how you're creating pathways for your audience?
Thank you. So the work of URJ Reformed Jewish Outreach Boston really exists in partnership with both the Union for Reform Judaism and our local federation, which is the most amazing combined Jewish philanthropy, CJP. And we really wouldn't exist without the support of both. We offer educational programs primarily targeted as young adults or emerging adults. Our key demographic are adults between the ages of 25 and 40. And we offer programs like A Taste of Judaism, which I describe as an intro to intro. It's a free course. We offer Introduction to Judaism. And we offer a program similar to Love and Religion, which we heard about this morning, called Yours, Mine, and Ours, that is specifically for interfaith couples. So we offer these opportunities for interfaith couples and individuals who are exploring Judaism to learn about Judaism in an open, supportive, loving community taught with amazing instructors who are most often congregational rabbis. And most of our classes for our participants are held in congregations, although not all of them. Most of them are held in synagogues, in URJ synagogues. And for many